Hi, everybody. How are you? Thanks for joining us today. Thank you so much for popping into I'm Possible Live. I am so excited about today's guest. Why am I excited? Because Jill is one of those reasons when you're in virtual spaces and you see somebody with amazing, fantastic energy. She's the reason why you should always click on somebody's LinkedIn profile. You should always click on somebody's Meta profile. And you should always click on somebody's Instagram profile or whatever platform you're on. You'll find that you meet somebody who Jeffrey Davis of Tracking Wonder would say really sparks your curiosity. It's kind of like, ooh, thank you, universe, for sending me another really cool kid to play with today. I had the pleasure of meeting Jill inside of Positive Intelligence, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Community of Practice. Honored to be a member. If you're a mental fitness coach, check out that community of practice because Tiana and Sandra lead it with integrity. And one day we had the equivalent of just like an open mic conversation. And hi to whoever is joining us on multiple platforms. You know the drill. Introduce yourself. Let us know you're here, where you're from. Let us know a way we can help you in between impossible lives. But back to Amazing Jill. So on an open mic day, Jill said something on a really deep, rich topic from a really personal level, transparency with vulnerability, with courtesy, with respect, the way that we always want to show up in our world. And it gave me a chance to say, ooh, I have got to reach out to this lovely lady. One of the things I laughed at was when I reached out, Jill and I live an hour away. I had the chance after reaching out to her and in one beautiful conversation and inviting her to be here today as a guest. And I'm honored she's joining us. But Jill's like, are you going to Hudson Valley Women in Businesses event? Lori's celebrating her ninth anniversary. Lori was one of our wonderful guests this summer in Conversations about Introverts. And I had a chance to meet Jill in person. So we always talk about the challenges sometimes of bridging the live and the virtual gaps. Some of you, I am still dying to meet. We've been connecting on screens and in places for a number of times. And Jill's a reminder, it's going to happen. So, on that note, and we're about to let Jill introduce herself. I'm a virtual toast girl, and Jill's birthday is this week. So, I want to honor you, honor her, toast to all the really good pathways energy in the room.
Thank you.
Thank you. And at the same time, Jill has a fundraiser on Meta that we're going to ask her to share at the end. You may not want to contribute, you may not be ready to contribute, but when you have a chance, after Jill introduces herself, pick up a pen, share in comments something you want us to talk about, because Jill and I really understand the concept of life in a fragile world. And we're delighted you're joining us today for our discussion. So, Jill, without further ado, let everybody know who you are.
Thank you, Melanie. I so appreciate that really elevated introduction. Thank you so much. And I just want to acknowledge what you're creating is such an extraordinary and honest space that I'm really so honored to be a part of today. Thank you. And thanks for your birthday wishes. A little bit about me. So, how I came to be in this iteration of myself is that I am a creative director. For almost 30 years, I've been a designer, marketing designer, creative director, art director. I've had my own agency for the past 13 years now, and I've been doing personal development for most of my adult life, actually. I started doing personal development, in various ways, learning energy work and eventually, and even just doing yoga and mindfulness training in the beginning, and ultimately um, led me to do some transformational personal development work in a group. My original reason for doing it is one, that I've always been interested in unleashing creativity. And so that required quite a bit of sort of, for lack of a better term, navel gazing in a sense, and doing the work that it takes to remove boundaries and blocks that will prevent you from your creativity. And in that process, I really discovered who I was in the world and who I wanted to be in the world. So my fascination with how things work as a designer turns out when I was doing personal development, I discovered it was a fascination with how we work. And over time, through various events in my life, I sought different types of personal development, from a large group to working with a private coach to working with energy workers, to working with in the construct of energy work, in a sense, learning Reiki and subtle energy work along the way. And through sort of catalytic events, I discovered so much of how much I cared about how things work really were that I have a promise and a mission that is undeniable part of who I am. And that promise and the mission is that all people experience their lives as a work of art. And through the process of living with that promise, first of all, it was very challenging to discover fearlessly that I had that promise. And then in living with that promise in the world, I found that each time I shared it, there was some part of that promise that wasn't aligning with how the world is and how the fragile world is, in a sense. And along the way, I discovered coaching, and I've trained in several coaching practicum. I trained with Martha Beck Institute back in 2009. I've done senior level landmark wisdom curriculum, which was, between, I think, something like 2007 and 2010. And I recently completed the IPEC coach training program, as well as I am currently enrolled in two programs that are on sort of opposite ends of the spectrum. Along the way, when I discovered my promise, I learned that in a world where there's no equity, my promise is impossible. And having the willingness to declare an impossible promise is taking a leap of faith into the future, not knowing how. So when I took that leap and declared my promise, I knew that I would be away from the shore, as it were, so to speak, for a very long time in discovering what that meant in the world. So currently I'm enrolled in two programs which complement each other really beautifully. One is called CORE, Consciousness of Radical Equity Training, which I am learning from the Minka Mystery School, which is a collective that teaches radical equity through the platform of energy workers and healers. And the other program that I'm enrolled in currently is positive intelligence. I'm a PQ coach. And that allows me to find my grounding in the fragile world that I'm embarking on, where I take on my mission toward my impossible promise. And that mission, in order for that mission to be possible, I must be a part of the solution of anti-racism and social justice. And so as I move into this next stage of my career, I'm going to be 55 on Wednesday. And thanks, Melanie. I'll say the date. I'll say the age. I'm going to be 55 on Wednesday, and I know that moving forward in my life, that I can't not do this in the world. So I'm trying at this time to sort of piece the puzzle pieces together of all those dynamics in a way that I can be a change in the world. And that hopefully I can create a space for others where they are, as a coach, where they're creating almost radical abilities to be with all of the fragility in the world. Engaging their courageousness, their confidence, because they are peeling off the layers of the onion in their own personal lives and their belief systems. So that's where I am right now. It changes all the time, but right now, that's what I can clearly say is my path.
Jill, welcome to Double Nickel Land, as I called 55. It's not just a speed limit in some areas. It's an opportunity, I think. And one of the gifts I love about the number, and a numerology coach told me about fives. Keep an eye on fives whenever they appear and pop up, that behind the fives are like incredible transformations. So I really just want to say, while you're introducing yourself, hi, Leslie George. Hi, Andrea Dixon. Hi, Edison Guzman. Hey, Vicki Lynn. Ronnie. Cypress Jackson in the house. And Carol, thank you so much. Woo. She's in cohort 13 and joining us from New Mexico. Warm welcome. And thank you. PQ in the house. Jill, what I love about your introduction on so many levels is that your energy is so incredible that I could feel it on a really complex day in a community of practice, that from the second I joined Positive Intelligence's diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging community of practice, it felt like it could be home. It felt like it could be a really safe place to explore, to reach out. And for those of you who don't know what positive intelligence is, the simplest way to explain it is we have 10 saboteurs. We have a judge that is not measured in the assessment that you take when you do check out a positive intelligence assessment. That's why people have been laughing whenever I say, here come the judge, here come the judge. It's the saboteur that is not measured on the assessment. Jill and I had a long conversation before we started about our judges and about the lenses with which we approach conversations. And I am so delighted to be here as you're approaching double nickel, as I'd call it, because you're reminding us our journey of how we get there, that path that we take has twists, has turns. A wonderful conversation I was having with somebody at door. We were talking about not wanting to go backwards. And hey, Marie Vega Byrne, my sister from another mother, is in the house. More PQ coaches, bless you and thank you. And I think the thing that's interesting about the pathways, and Marie's helped me a lot with this because I never was interested in being a coach. I never called myself a coach. And I probably have been coaching for longer than the 17 years I will acknowledge being a coach. And I started out in event success coach and how to help people differentiate themselves. And I think that's the part that really caught me about my first chance to listen to thank you, my sister from another mother. But that's one of the first things that caught me about how you spoke. You spoke with such care, with such eloquence, with such grace. You're reminding us this anti racism work is really complicated. Having the discussion. Hey, Tamara, welcome. Thanks for popping in. Tamara, welcome to Impossible Live, and thanks for joining us from PQ Cohort 10. Even if you're unable to stay long, we hope you'll pop back in for a replay. Let us know, um, other topics you might find of interest or something that you think we should share more about or a question that pops up. And it would be great if we do that, whether we do it live or on replays or in private conversations outside of this. But I think one of the things is we came up with pathways, and Jill and I have like 4 other topics that we want to talk to you about. So Jill's coming back. That's the great news. The thing that I think that's challenging is about pathways. We all start at different places. We all end up at different places. We're all going different places. And if we can accept that as the starting point of any respectful discussion with politeness, with courtesy, and with the ability to really hear each other, because I think that's what's under the pathways to awareness, energy, and sage is our communication skills to really tune in. Jill reminds me of meeting Dr. Lisa Whippinger many years ago. And I have to introduce you to Lisa because it's been a while and I need to tell her Happy New Year. When I met Lisa, it was kind of like I saw trumpets and white light behind her at like an event that was a long, exhausting event for the Chamber of Commerce. And something was like, you need to pay attention to this woman. She's important. Whatever she asks you for, you need to help her. And I think maybe part of this conversation about pathways is that for us to help each other, we got to create a space to pause and listen to each other. And if it's not the right space, we need to find a private one. And if it's not, if respect is not in the room, if courtesy isn't in the room, that maybe trying to figure out the pathway to get to that point of just being able to, I hear you, I see you, I feel you. And to acknowledge we may not agree. We're not looking at it through the same glasses or not glasses. We're not all nearsighted or farsighted. We may have astigmatism. We may have different shaped corneas. We have different colors to our eyes. That lens that we look through is so different for everybody. And we need to really understand it from a culture perspective or be around somebody we care enough to listen to who can help us explore that the other side exists.
That's amazing what you said there, Melanie. I was hearing what you were saying and I was thinking a little bit about like what has been the single most valuable or some of the most valuable things that I've learned along the way on my pathway through personal development in a sense. And one of the key things that I learned very early on and that I got very early on is that our listening is a gift. And that if we can't uncover our abilities to listen, then it will be very hard for us to hear the gift in any conversation, or even be complete in the space of conversations where we disagree, like with activism, for example. And our listening is a gift, and the key thing that I think a lot of folks don't have access to, or lands in our blind spot, is that we don't ask ourselves in a conversation, who am I being in the conversation that I can't be listening? And so one of the things that, you know, comes really clear through in the world of coaching is that we uncover, with our clients and with ourselves, we have to do we have to walk the talk in order to be with our clients as coaches. And in order to uncover things, we have to increase our ability. And it's a little controversial to say this right now, but increase our capacity and ability to be with uncomfort and discomfort in these conversations. And usually what prevents us from doing that are limiting beliefs and we all have them. You know, we're all human, so we've all learned that certain things are right. You know, we've all learned under the sort of binary rule system that all things are right or wrong, black or white, good or bad. And really, you know, we all exist kind of in a soup. There's not this binary hierarchy. We can be sad about something in one moment and happy about something in the next moment, just by being with ourselves in that moment, or being present to what's so for us in that moment. And so, you know, I think that the first place to start, you know, if one's interested in being in all kinds of conversations, right? The first place to start, and it's not a right or wrong conversation, but who am I being in this conversation, and what is it preventing me from seeing or hearing in the conversation? And this, you know, this is important to me personally, because I've always been fascinated with communication, you know, from a branding perspective and a design perspective. Our goal as designers is always to, how do we communicate this so that the most people out there will get our communication or hear our communication? So that's a founding principle for me, in a sense, is how do I be gotten in the world, that I discovered for myself through personal development. Like that. So it's a really interesting conversation to be in once you realize, like for me, for example, who I was being in the world was that I'm not good enough in a lot of places, that I'm not good enough to be a leader, let's say, for example, or be a coach, or be a director, even a creative director. There are so many things in the world that tell there's so much evidence in the world of what we can't do, that sometimes we're not aware of what we need to do to step into what we can do. And it's a very simple moment that we can make that choice. So I guess my point being is that it's really important to gaze within and allow yourself to gaze within in order to make a difference and an impact in a greater sense in the world.
Wow. I love what you just said, because you're really tapping on the awareness part and really on the self-awareness part. And sometimes because of saboteurs or life or outside stresses or pressures or internal ones that others can't see, we're not always aware. I ended up in some really deep conversations on Friday, while sitting in a room, possibly waiting to be interviewed or disqualified from serving on a jury. And in the process, the conversations that I had really will stick with me for a while. And none of us exchanged names. We heard each other's names be called at certain times when, they would call you up for the panel. And I laughed because at one point in the afternoon, I ended up talking to three amazing people. And all three of them were called up to sit in one of the 8 seats at the same time. Almost to the point where I was joking with somebody else in the room, not such good luck to sit near me, huh? And we were laughing because other people had felt that as a full room became empty seats. And what I thought was really interesting was none of us exchanged a lot of information. Somebody pulled up an amazing photo. I mentioned my dad in Ebbetsville and being a Mets fan, Brooklyn Dodgers, led dad from Ebbetsville to the Brooklyn Dodgers to the Mets. And it was funny being born in the Bronx to share that with somebody. And the woman behind me had a picture of her great great grandfather with Jackie Robinson at Ebbets Field on her phone. It's not something we planned, just people showing up and kind of talking from where we were. And it was really funny. The Mets came up because I had a Mets thermal hoodie on and I was using it as a blanket to take a nap during lunch. And when I took the nap, the Mets logo wasn't facing forward. But for the next break, my Mets logo was out. My energy had changed because the jury topic really affected me emotionally. And I was lucky I was not paying attention in the morning, not paying full attention. Wasn't in my phone. I just was someplace else, I think deconditioning. And the topic of the jury, this would be a jury people would make sure I never served on. In a world where we really understand bias, um, conscious or unconscious, this would have been a case where it would have been impossible for me to be objective. As Jill and I keep talking during extended seasons of grief, gratitude, and growth, when some other channel is happening, something pauses you from being as fully aware as you could be. It shifted my energy. I needed a nap. It shifted my temperature. I got cold. And as our PQ friends would say, I switched into the sage powers and the sage energies, and I still needed something else. And this wonderful mini village around me was a reminder you're not alone. And I think that's the point where no matter what conversation we're having, no matter how isolated we feel, no matter how they don't hear me, and I'm laughing at the truth of this as the throat chakra kicks in again, because human design coaches have helped me understand the need to keep deconditioning because there's something behind every layer. It's just like the trust work with Yvette Bethel. And it's just like our conversation today.
Absolutely. Were you going to say something else, Melanie? That's amazing what you just shared, because it really is just illustrating so beautifully and so clearly that it's not just our mind that is what we need to be aware of in any conversation. It's also what our body is telling us is very important, what we need. And what our energy is telling us is very important, what we need. And if we allow ourselves to listen to all of that, and it's not just that either. If you think about it, it's the people around us are also attracted to the same energy that we need. So what you described so beautifully was sort of the anima mundi, the entire thing all together. which is what you felt, what you thought, and then what community around you did in support of what your needs were. It's almost like if we allow ourselves to be with all of it for all it is and all that it isn't, community shows up. And it's, being with everything, all of us, for all we are and all that we aren't, is allowing us to heal ourselves enough to be in community. And I've learned personally from my own sort of painful catalytic experiences in my own life, a lot of my sort of catalytic events or traumatic events in my life led me to seek out healing. They brought me to sort of my most vulnerable level of energy, which is designed to have you reach out for support and community. And, if you look at that templated over what's happening in the world right now, it's really so clear that we all need community. We all need to support each other. Nothing is going to move forward if we don't do things in community, whatever our community is. And what you shared was that the community actually has like a brain of its own without knowing it. It has a thinking that it knows how to. It's almost like, have you ever heard, about any kind of plant wisdom or tree wisdom? With plant wisdom, for example, a tree, the community of trees will keep a tree trunk alive for hundreds, maybe even thousands of years with its own individual ecosystem. And it knows how to do that because that tree trunk has an abundance of resources in the environment, and all of it is one. We have that knowledge inside of ourselves as well. We are natural beings, and our world and all of our conversations sometimes prevent us from really embracing all of that, if that makes sense.
It definitely does. What I really love is our listeners are like hanging on. They're with us. No one's typing, Jill. I'm sure pens are moving. I'm sure thoughts are moving. I think also, as you were saying about community, I was in a community in which I was relatively disengaged during jury duty in the morning until I created some space for self care. And I think people were probably like, somebody's like, oh, uh, you going to lunch? And I'm like, no, I'm going to take a nap. And the person's like telling me, go to another room and take a nap. What they don't know is I don't take 20-minute naps. And I knew it would be like a 20-minute, 25-minute nap. And I knew I better stay where I was because they would look for us to return to jury duty and I would be sleeping soundly someplace.
Okay.
But I love what you're saying because
God bless you.
these people, I'm a bus driver's kid. Put me in a car or a moving vehicle and, Hudson Valley commuter, that commute sometimes could be two hours in each direction, and when I was a girl from the Bronx, we went from the first stop on the bus to the last stop on the bus, from the first stop of the train into Manhattan. So I really understood commuting from a different lens, but I think understanding what it is that we need from a support perspective of creating, like you would say, really safe spaces to have these kind of conversations and dialogues, of knowing behind them, we can all feel our saboteurs or a little less confident, kind of, here's where I'm at, where are you at? And for Jill's birthday, she's got a fundraiser that I'm going to mention from an Impossible Live perspective. And I'm going to mention it without putting any pressure on Jill. This woman's courage reminds me of Martin Stark. And thank you, Martin, for popping up into my life during a LinkedIn mastery. room on a day when politically, our political news wasn't the most positive. That's the day I met Martin Stark, on a day when I couldn't figure out how to explain my feelings on a certain subject. Here was Jill, with clarity, with transparency, with courage. Check her out on Instagram and share her Instagram post with someone you want to have a conversation with. Do not bring her any trolls during her birthday week. Do not bring her any agita during her birthday week. Do not bring her any grief in a world that's already really heavy with grief. But know that she's fundraising for a not for profit that I did all the clicking through, and Jill suggested it with care as a member of a culture right now where a lot of people are hurting. If you can name a culture right now where people aren't hurting, you may not agree with our definition of a fragile world. And that is your right, your respect, your place to be at. But know that Jill's got a fundraiser on her Meta page. And I clicked through and read for about an hour because it's a different voice. I heard a little bit of it from Jill, but it's a different perspective about an issue that many of us are not comfortable having public conversations about. And here's this wonderful woman. So, Jill, you're an anti-racial inspirator. Did I say it correctly?
Inspirator. I made up the word, but yes, that's as close as I can get to it.
So if you're into inspiration and helping others do what we do at Impossible Live, which is ignite trust and ignite torches, so we make this world a little less fragile, give a second to peek at Jill's post on Meta and make sure the trolls stay out of her way on her birthday week. Marie would say, I've said, hey, come help Jill. Hey, come check in. Hey, come lean in. Hey, if you mess up her birthday, Mel's coming. Mel's coming to check you out.
And I will say this, I will add that, yes, and I don't appreciate trolls, but I will say this, no matter where you stand and what you feel, I would encourage you to share it, regardless of if you think that it won't be received well. I will hold the space for you wherever you're at to share what's so for you. I may not agree with where you're at, but where you're at is as valid as where I'm at or where any of us are at. And the point is, if we want to be in community, all of us have to be held at where we are individually at.
And that is just like amazing. I think the thing too, that I would say about Jill's amazing profile is that she's got a great post for my birthday and every day. Peace. Please consider donating or supporting a Jewish voice for peace, as they are a humanitarian voice that we need right now. And she's really close at hitting her fundraiser level. And I think the thing that I really embraced, besides meeting this wonderful woman in an amazing PQ community of practice, was her humanitarian voice. Wonderful spirit. We knew we were safe. You know, I'm the girl who my rose-colored glasses hashtag was peace matters, the number 4 all, the number 2 all. And I typed it until there was a day when I believed that many weren't interested in peace. But Jill's birthday wish and every day is about peace. And regardless of what you how you define peace, whether it exists in your world right now or not. And some would say, wow, y'all went deep and serious. That's because I want to thank Jill. We've been hanging out in the green room on the other side for a bit today. And I never know what we'll talk about. And I love that. One of the things that I would also encourage you to do is, Jill, where is the best place for people to find you other than your amazing website and your LinkedIn profile or your Instagram? Where's some place where you would like some love right now?
Um, hmm. Where would I? Well, you can follow my page on Facebook, which is the creative type underscore NY, or the creative type New York. You'll find me if you search my page. I'd say just join me on LinkedIn or any of those channels that Melanie mentioned, because I'm on all of those channels at any given time. And I'd love to hear from you if something resonated for you in this conversation that you want to discuss further or you want to hear more about. I'd be happy to set up like a 30-minute conversation with you. My email address is jill@creativetypenyc.com. And you could just email me and say, I saw your conversation with Mel, and you can book a free 30-minute conversation with me right from my email when I respond to you. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to chat further.
I want to thank also all the wonderful people who joined us on Facebook. If I haven't had a chance to get to your comments to thank you, I will get to them shortly, and Jill will get to them shortly. She's also in Illuminations groups for talented entrepreneurs. So that is my group on Meta. It's a really safe place to have a conversation. If having a conversation with Jill on LinkedIn is not your cup of tea, and let me know, because in our community, maybe we'll have another little discussion to kind of continue our conversation. The thing I appreciate about Jill is in the beginning of this year in another community, I mentioned fragile worlds in a space where others didn't feel it or see it. That was last year, the beginning of last year. And I'm like, how do people not see this? How do they not feel this? And it's the reminder there's a different path that we walk. We have different vibes. We have different cultures. And in many cases, we have so much other stuff happening. After almost 2 years of PQ, I'm in a room with a bunch of other people, and people jokingly call me the queen of networking, and I wasn't paying attention to other people. I was taking care of myself. And it's the real reminder sometimes that self-care lens really changes our ability to hear, process, and see. So let's schedule more time for that in our calendar.
Self-care is taking care of all of us.
Let's put those devices on do not disturb, or mine's on temporarily mute, which will end shortly. You know what? Pop in if you can. Please share this conversation with somebody else who you love, who you care about, who's maybe having a hard time voicing what's happening with them. And in a loving way, if it's not the right time, share a link and wait for them to come back to you sometime. But on the other hand, Jill is definitely right person to explore all of these pathways to mental fitness, to awareness, to energy. She's certified in so many cool things. We're going to continue learning about what new certifications we can congratulate her for during her birthday. So thank you so much for sharing your new certifications. Thank you for sharing your gems. Thank you so much, Jill, for popping in to share.
Thank you so much for having me, Mel.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And I can't wait to see you at another non-Hudson Valley Women in Business event. It looks like they know there's going to be a storm tomorrow. They're taking another little break, but we will definitely find the time to catch up and connect.
We
To
sure
those of
will.
you joining us, thank you for popping in. Stay safe, Stay well, stay inspired, and stay in touch. And we hope you have a magnificent day filled with opportunities and possibilities. Take great care. Be well.